Hello there. My name is Robert Foreman, and this is part of my Substack. And in my Substack, I am exploring the readings from the lectionary, the readings that the Episcopalians, most of the Catholics, and the UCC use. And today we're exploring the fourth Sunday in Lent, which is coming up. What's the date? March the 11th, 12th, 13th, March the 15th, I think. And in these readings, we have the Old Testament passage, Samuel, in which he picks out David, Psalm 23, Ephesians 5, and the long gospel from John, John 9, 1 through 41. But I want to explore the 23rd Psalm in part because it is so famous and so beloved. And I have had to make sense. I've wanted to make sense of it in my way. Um, the 23rd Psalm is probably the most famous of all the Psalms and is recited by people. I used to recite it, frankly. And I worked on this with my classes in Hunter College sometimes. And it's a beautiful thing. And one of the reasons I want to talk about it is unlike many of the Psalms, which talk about the nation of Israel and talk about our people and the judgment of God and whatnot, this is really a psalm about individuals, an individual, and the way an individual feels or hopes to feel, the way an individual understands themselves. And it is highly emotional. It's shot through with emotion, I would say, but it's also shot through with what I would describe as individual mysticism, typical mysticism, because most mysticism is, of course, individual. And again, I think it's just an absolutely beautiful piece. It's also shot through with what I call tarki. And if you'll recall, in Buddhism distinguishes between tarki and jiriki. Jiriki is self-power. You get to enlightenment by means of your meditation. You get to enlightenment by means of your self-reflection. You get to enlightenment by means of doing, I don't know, Tai Chi or something like that. And that's self-power. There's also what they call Taraki. And Taraki is other power. And in Buddhism, they rely on, say, the Buddha or Amida Buddha and hope that or pray that the Amida Buddha will protect them. In Hinduism, people will pray to Shiva to protect them, or to Vishnu or to Krishna to protect them. And for many a Christian, it's God or Christ that'll protect us, to protect me. Um, when I interviewed the mystics on the margins for my book, Christianity Reimagined, a mystical approach for doubters and the dubious, ta-da, um, I interviewed more than 50 mystics on the margins, people that had their doubts about the system, had their doubts about the doctrine, and not one of them encountered a figure, as if a figure standing alongside them. And in fact, in all of the times that I interviewed patients at the hospital as a chaplain, only one time in all the thousands of interviews I did somebody say they sensed a person or a figure standing over next to them. For most of us, the mystical experiences we have are not experiences of some other figure, not experiences of some external figure. Rather, our mystical experiences tend to be about sensing something around us, sensing of some sort of reality that we stand in, sensing something that's we're just sort of wide open, sensing something that is we're particularly present or we're particularly awake to something. The world itself seems particularly beautiful, or the space around us seems particularly loving and warm. So I think the idea that we will have um, idea that we would have um, some external, for all these people, the idea that we would have some external figure is it's just not part of our experience. And it's not part of mine. I've never experienced some sort of figure like that. And so I would say that the typical mystical experience is not an experience of some God figure or Amida Buddha figure, but rather the experience is of being part of something grander, being part of something, as it were, field like, without personality. You're part of some grandness. You're part of some vastness, if you will. Now, I also want to say that if the problems that we have are psychological issues, none of us would say these days, given our history of psychology and um, given our history of um, therapy and self-reflection, none of us would say that we are expecting our neuroses to be solved by some external figure. All of us would say, I think it's fair to say, all of us would say that we have to do the work ourselves somehow. We have to sink into our issues. We have to do the work of shifting the way we regard ourselves and shifting the way we experience ourselves. All right. So then, if I was to say, what are those experiences like? What are the experiences of the mystical or the spiritual like? What do they, what do they feel like? What are they like? For me, I often feel like there's a sense of wide openness. It's as if you're sort of in something huge. You're in something vast. And this vastness is very loving. It's very reassuring. It's very sweet. It's very beautiful. Uh, I have a sense that I'm connected to what's around me. I have a sense of I'm connected to the world. I have a sense of I'm connected to something larger than me. And that this world or me is particularly alive, particularly present. I have a feeling of grand presence. I'm particularly present. And with that, I'm feeling rather invulnerable. I'm sensing this sense of wide open, loving sweetness, and I'm connecting with it, and I feel safe. I feel quite well protected by it. I'm not, as a result of that, in these experiences, though they might be short-lived, they might be long-lived, in these experiences, I'm not craving anything. I'm not saying to myself, oh wow, what is, I need this or that. I'm not Yeah, I'm not longing for something. I'm simply happy to be present. I'm simply happy to be there. I feel, in terms of this psalm, I feel that I'm okay. So let's take a squint at the psalm. Let's take a look at the psalm because I think here we are experiencing the psalm and I shall not be in want. That's kind of the way it feels. I shall not be in want. I'm feeling content as I am. Or here's the traditional one, I shall not want. This is the traditional one. I put the traditional one down below, and this is the one that the Episcopalians gave me today. So I will fear no evil. Where is that? I shall not want. I fear no evil. I will fear no evil. Ah, here it is. I will fear no evil. In other words, I'm not scared when I'm in these moments. I'm not scared. I'm not afraid that something is going to befall me. I'm not afraid that I'm going to be caught. I'm not afraid that something is going to happen to me. Rather, I'm feeling safe. And that's kind of the theme of this thing. So I feel invulnerable in these things. And that's what this business of being a shepherd is. The Lord is my shepherd. He restores my soul. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Now, if we don't have the image of a person, we don't have the image of a rod and staff. So when I read this, I say to myself, well, What are we saying? And what we're saying, I think, is that I feel like there's some protective something around me. I feel protected. The rod and the staff are an image of being protected, cared for, and I'm comfortable. It's an image of the world is not dangerous. He makes me lie down, so I shall not be in want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. What could be more lovely than that? This is an image, of course, of being a sheep, being forced to lie down, being made to lie down in green pastures is exactly where you want to hang out. And you hanging out beside still waters, it quenches your thirst. It makes you feel content. And that's the way it is in these mystical experiences. You do feel content. You feel like, in fact, these experiences actually feel kind of still, don't they? It feels silent. They feel wide open in that sense. And so, in that sense, I think this psalm is describing just what it feels like. I feel goodness and mercy. These things feel like they are just wonderful. Goodness and mercy shall follow me. And that's, I think, surely your goodness and mercy follow me all the days of my life is exactly what we're feeling here. I feel like these moments are very good. They're just delicious, aren't they? And that's what I think this thing is describing, this psalm is describing. Okay, so that's the quality of your spiritual experiences or mystical experiences. Then, if you have one of these experiences, you want to ask, well, what's the effect on your behavior? If you're actually in one of these experiences as you go into the world, or if you've had these experiences even and just sort of quietly in the woods, what kind of effect on your behavior is it likely to have? What it's likely to have is that you're unlikely to make any selfish actions. You're unlikely to do things that are going to screw your neighbor. You're unlikely to do things that aren't going to harm yourself or harm others. You act in a way that's caring for others. You act in a way you take others into account. So that's where I think when you say he revives my soul and guides me along right pathways for his name's sake. He leads me in a path of righteousness. In other words, when you're in these experiences, you act in a right way. You act in a way that's sort of, I don't know, in one other psalm, it was like you're acting in an upright way. And so I think that's what we're saying. You're not likely to do selfish action. You're likely to act in such a way that cares for self and others. You will be with me and you will act in a right way. And I think that is sort of the experience of being in these mystical experiences. You act in such a way that you're doing right. You're taking others into account. You're taking your own needs into account. So that's what we're doing here. Okay. Then we get to this wonderful image of you spread a table before me in the presence of mine enemies, those who trouble me. Spreading a table before me, what's that? What's that about? When you sit down to a table, I used to go to my mother-in-law's house when she was still alive. And I would arrive at the house and she would say, "Oh, here, would you like this?" And she would whip out the bologna and she would whip out some cereal and she would whip out soup and she would whip out chili and she would whip out cold cuts. And it was like she was spreading a table, it was like wonderful. It was just delicious. And you'd felt really well taken care of. I felt really well taken care of. And that's exactly what we're describing here. You spread the table before me. You spread the table. I feel very well taken care of, even in the presence of mine enemies, even in the presence of people that scare me or trouble me, right? That's what we're describing here. That's what these experiences are like. You prepare a table before me in the presence of mine enemies is the famous line. So in these mystical experiences, your cup is full. You feel like in fact, your cup overflows. You feel like you've got enough, that the world is enough, that you're enough, that the whole thing is enough. That's what these spiritual experiences are like. And so what we're describing here is exactly what we know. I don't want to go into being I don't want to go into being anointed. That's a long story, and I don't feel like doing it here. But having a table prepared for before me in the presence of mine enemies is a feeling of satiation, a feeling you've got enough. In fact, a feeling that you're doing well. In fact, I'm thinking about an experience I had not too long ago. I was riding on my motorcycle, and all of a sudden the world just sort of settled down, and I found myself in this wide open space. There was this White House over to my right. I'm kind of seeing it now. And I just felt like the world is okay. I was craving nothing. I needed nothing more. And that's what these experiences were like. And I could perfectly well describe it as I felt like there was a shepherd watching over me. I felt like my table was spread out full. And I didn't, I wasn't craving anything. Okay. Last image here. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Beautiful image. Beautiful image. When you're in a state like this, when you're having a spiritual experience like this, one of two things. First of all, you might feel like this will last forever, and that it feels timeless. It feels like this is just the nature of what life is about, and that this is the way you're going to feel. Or you might actually have one of these experiences that goes on and lasts for a long time, or lasts even forever. Some people have these experiences and they just never let up. I'm thinking here of Bernadette Roberts, whose experience of no self was with her for the rest of her life. So, this kind of goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. You'll feel that way forever, and you will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. You will live in this or feel that you will live in this forever, all the days of your life. And so that there's a very optimistic quality of these experiences. You feel good, you feel the loving quality of reality, you feel the loving quality of nature, and you feel like this will last forever. And it's a beautiful thing. So all in all, I want to summarize what I've done here. All in all, this poem, this song, is done with Tariki in mind. It's a very other-centered psalm. And as such, and as such, it sounds like the only way this makes sense is to say there's somebody else watching over me. But when you think about it, when you think about the nature of the spiritual life and the spiritual experience, it makes perfectly good sense if you don't have an other power that's going to take care of me. It makes perfectly good sense if your life is oriented towards Jiriki, self-power, or at least not oriented towards not another. And this wonderful poem, this wonderful psalm, is a way of talking about the sort of glorious quality that we feel when we are in these moments. And we feel safe, we feel protected, we feel like the world is a good place, the world is a safe space, and we'll feel like we'll be there forever. It's a beautiful psalm. And that's what I wanted to share with you. So let me close this down, stop sharing, and I want to say goodbye and have a wonderful Easter. I will not be with you next week because I'll be in Mexico, and I look forward to coming back and visiting with you again.